Not sure if you saw the Q&A program over the weekend, but somebody who had a vignette, a little bit of a feature, a cameo appearance in the program on Sunday is, well, a regular contributor to this program. CEO of the Free Speech Union, Jonathan Ayling. Kia ora. Good morning. Thanks for your time today.
Good morning, Andrew.
It seems, well, at least according to the piece on Q&A, that hate speech is last year's issue. Now it's hate crimes. Is that... I mean, I'm getting shades of 1984 in this one. Soon it'll be the thought police and sex crimes. But what essentially is the difference between hate speech and hate crimes, in your opinion?
You tell me, Andrew. 1984, deja vu.
Yeah.
Hate is a subjective term. And so we always insisted with hate speech, without a doubt, no one could argue there is speech that is hateful out there. And hateful speech causes harm. But how do we respond to that? That's the far more interesting question. And I would say equally, there are crimes out there. There are crimes out there that are motivated by a whole range of factors. One of those motivating factors may be hate towards another group or another individual.
Yep.
And yet, I do not believe that the state has a role in policing people's words. And while the state does have a role in policing people's actions, they shouldn't treat the same crime done by two different people for two different reasons differently. You do a crime, you pay a price. That's how the rule of law works. And what I'm really concerned by, as we saw in this interview on Q&A last week, but the general work that has been led by the Law Commission at the moment on hate crimes, is that this will become a rod to beat the backs of individuals who have unfavorable opinions, because we have a whole lot of actions that are occurring. As I've said, defacing Te Tiriti at Te Papa we saw last year. Vandals go in and destroy the English version. In their view, the English version is no way honouring the treaty that the Maori chief signs in 1840, and so they don't think they're being hateful. They think they're honouring the treaty. Brian Tamaki and his men paint over a rainbow crossing. They don't think they're being hateful. They're thinking it's a loving message to try and stop people from acting in this way. It's not the state's role to decide what hate is.
It is that, I suppose, distinction to say that speech is something that you say, hate crimes is an action that you take. And you and I have discussed this many times before. It's not the speech or the thoughts that are the problem. It's when that's put into action. Hate action is, well, I mean, this is already a crime in New Zealand. This is the point. We don't criminalise people's motivations. We criminalise their actions.
That's exactly right. And without a doubt, as again, we frequently say, you are free to think what you want. You are largely free to say what you want. You are not free to act however you want. But I don't think the government should get in the minds of its people trying to figure out why they're acting in certain ways. And I think we look at what's happening, of course, in Scotland just recently, the hate speech law has come through. But across the UK, hate crimes have been in place for some time. The police and the Metropolitan Police in London in particular use these quite frequently. And it becomes just so vague in terms of why an individual operated a certain way. You treat them differently based on the same action simply because of the perspective they're coming from. This isn't how we operate in a free democratic society.
Now, as somebody whose Scottish ancestry goes back to before Hadrian built his wall, this really does stick in my throat, because William Wallace, well, at least in the movie, Mel Gibson cried freedom with his face painted blue, and now the cry of freedom is being hushed up north of the border in Scotland. They're saying, well, you know, some all thoughts are equal, but some thoughts are more equal than others. Quite a lot of pushback. I mean, they're still pretty feisty, the Scots. Quite a lot of pushback from this recent legislation, Jonathan.
Absolutely, and provides a really interesting case study, if you will, Andrew, for what would have undoubtedly been the case here in New Zealand had the tens of thousands of Kiwis who pushed back, had they not pushed back against the hate speech laws and joined the FSU in telling the previous government absolutely not. I think many of the cultural references are similar between Scotland and New Zealand. Many
Yep.
of the issues that we're debating are similar, and so it's interesting to see one society choose to go ahead with a law like this and one choose not to. And within the first 48 hours of the hate speech law being put in place following April 1st in Scotland, there were over 3,000 complaints to the police around hate speech. And this is not only is censorship a bad idea, not only does it not work in addressing hate or in addressing social cohesion, it is just unworkable also in terms of the scale for the police, who are already stretched thin, of course we know. And what
Yep.
this means is we'll end up with committees sitting around pontificating around whether an individual was hateful in their motivation or just simply illegal in their action,
Yep.
when real criminals are actually out there needing a little bit of justice brought to them. So I think what Scotland has done here is shown the world exactly why this is such a terrible idea, and I can only hope that that there's a course to addressing this eventually and bringing a little bit of sense and freedom back to Scotland.
I'd just like to hope and pray that William Wallace wasn't disemboweled for nothing. You know, if there's any true Scotsman left in the house, let us cry freedom, etc. Just finally on this one, though, I'd like to get your thoughts. Painting over rainbows, painting over facsimiles of Te Tiriti, is that hateful? Is that a crime? What's your view on that?
Those are two different questions there.
Yep.
Is it hateful?
Yes.
I can't say. Is it a crime? Of course it is. It is a crime. It's a crime that needs to be addressed. We have rule of law in this country, and I really suggest for individuals who are applauding breaking the law, be careful at the standard you're setting here. There will be a variety of opinions from your listeners here around whether rainbow crossings are appropriate. Certainly, I know many who think this is not something that should be publicly funded. This is not something that our cities should be drawing and endorsing. Fair enough. But there are ways to address that. Run for your local council. Write to your local newspaper. Challenge this through your words. Challenge the ideas. Don't act illegally over it, because the standard we set then is one of semi-anarchy. And societies benefit crucially from the foundation of free speech, and totally connected to that is the rule of law.
Yep.
That individuals are not targeted or criminalized based on what group they belong to or what opinions they hold. There is a set of laws that apply equally to everyone, from the king all the way down.
Yep.
And while free speech is certainly under attack here in New Zealand, rule of law is as well.
Yep.
And we need more advocates to be standing up in that space. So I would suggest that those are all crimes, and those are all crimes that need to be dealt with consistent with the legislation we have in place.
Now,
however, inserting hate in front of it doesn't make it more illegal to me. It doesn't make it more of a crime, and it introduces a level of subjectivity that is very dangerous.
One of the things which I think is important here is that painting over a publicly funded installation is against the law, whether or not you agree with the ideological point that the people doing the painting are making. And I think we need to make that distinction. We can't say, oh, yeah, but these guys can vandalize public property because we agree with their this form of protest. It needs to be illegal or not illegal. We can't bring sort of motivations and ideologies into this. Otherwise, if we're asking the police and the justice system to take ideological sides, we've got a very different war on our hands, Jonathan.
And that's absolutely right, Andrew. And I would also suggest again to those who think that this is an appropriate way of protesting, I don't think it's actually especially effective. No one's minds were changed by the fact that in Gisborne, Brian Tumming, Destiny Church's congregation painted over a crossing there. No one thought, hang on a second, I was supporting drag queens in libraries here, but they removed the rainbow and my mind has changed.
Yeah.
And so putting aside whether we are justified or whether we have a sense of legitimacy in our just anger, I would suggest we also want to be strategic. We want to be as wise as serpents, as harmless as doves.
Yeah.
And we want to act in a way that is winsome, and we do that by engaging ideas, not by breaking the law.
Jonathan, appreciate your comments as always. Long live Scotland. Go the referendum. I hope they get independence one day. Holding on to that prayerfully. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.